Greetings and welcome to this video of our series of introductory SolidWorks videos. In this one, we will be using a previous model of this rivet to create a drawing, a two-dimensional drawing. Now, you might wonder why in this day and age of all sorts of digital media and content do we need to have a two-dimensional drawing? Well, for starters, it is not machines that make things, it's people that make things. People operate the machines. In order for these people to know if the machines are operating properly, they need to be able to know what the part is that's being made and exactly how big this dome is supposed to be or this inside hole is supposed to be, and so on. If you just look at this part like it is here, you won't know. And if you just click on this, you can click on this like this, but then these dimensions come out all weird and wonky and so on. What we need is a method by which these dimensions and other callouts are communicated to the people that are making this product. Machines don't really care about it, the people really do. Can we program machines to check these things? Absolutely. But how are we going to program them if we don't know what the dimensions are to begin with? And if we don't know what those dimensions are to begin with, then we have to develop a way of clearly indicating what we want. What's more, what's important? A computer might be able to look at this and say, okay, this is uh, 25 in and that's 1 inch up and so on and so forth, but it doesn't know what's important. Would it be okay if this was a little bit off? In fact, when they make these things, they often are a little bit off. They usually are to one amount or another. Those are called tolerances. We need to be able to interpret those, and we need to make sure that it's clear what is important and what isn't. So I'm going to show you how to make a 2D drawing. Now, it used to be that 2D drawings were all we had. We didn't have solid models. Well, we may have had solid models, but they were actually created by somebody based on drawings. So we're going to go the other way around now. We made this solid model and we are going to create a drawing out of it. Again, this is all about communication, so we need to make sure that it is clear. So I'm going to emphasize that bit of design intent as we move forward. So what you want to do is you want to go up here to New, and you want to make drawing from part assembly. So it's going to create a drawing and it's going to base it off of this part. So this window comes up. Yep, we want to use a standard drawing template, at least for now. And we are given these various sheet sizes, and A is smaller than B is smaller than C, and so it just gets larger as we go up. B is double the size of A, C is double the size of B. But for A, it gives us both landscape and portrait. We're going to stick with just landscape here. Hit OK on that. And notice that it comes up with these views that we could use to bring onto our drawing sheet. Now, it indicates that this is the bottom because that's the way we drew our model to begin with. But I'm going to ignore this palette here and just give you an idea of what's going on here. What we're looking at here is the sheet. Now, there's another layer below this called the format. We'll get to that in a little bit, but that's what came in here. That's where you see A, B, 1, 2, and notice how even our drawing came in down here. We called it saw rivet, but it assumes that the name of the model is actually the drawing number. In our case, it wasn't a good fit. So we have a drawing number of saw rivet. You can change that, and we will in later drawings, but for now, we'll leave it. So what I really want to do is I want to show you how to bring in the drawings using these buttons here. We can start with a standard 3 view, which can often work for you, but in our case, if we click on here, it says, wait, is this the model you want to use? Saw rivet. And I'm going to double click on it, and here it pops in. However, I don't like these views. This is the front, this is the right, and this is the top. Well, maybe I should have done it differently in our model, but I'd used those planes in the model for other reasons. I wanted to associate them with the front, right, and top of the saw itself. So it didn't lend itself well to doing this standard 3 view. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to go back up here to model view, double click on saw rivet, and then it gives us these different options. So again, this is going to be our front. I actually wanted the what looks like bottom for starters. There we go. And then I want to look at the details within this part and up above. So coming up here is only going to show me the dome. Coming over here is going to just show me another side of this already symmetric piece. But if I come down here, you get to see the other circles. So I'm just going to click down here. Now, does this go over this? Yes, there's a problem here. So we'll take care of that later. I can continue to make views here, here, and so on, but at the moment I don't need any. I'll make about 3 more views in the process, but we'll just stick with what we have here. Okay, let's just show you how these views work out. Now, this is the first view I put in, and this is the parent view. Now, if I roll over something here and it shows it in orange like this, then I know it's about ready to be selected. So I'm going to click on it, and then it turns blue. That means it's selected, and then I can drag it around. Notice how the child view down here goes with it. It's always aligned up and moves around with it. But if I move this, I can't drag it over here because it stays lined up to the parent view. Now, notice how I had this down here. I don't really want this part of the format. I'm going to remove it. Now, you shouldn't do this if you're working for a company just for your own sake. You should stick with whatever they have for default. But I just wanted to show you a little bit about the format that's behind here. So I'm going to right click on the background, edit sheet format, and notice how the drawing goes away. We're talking about a format that would be the same for multiple drawings. And this particular sheet is sheet 1. And sometimes if you've got a complex part, you might have multiple sheets for the same part. So we're going to change this format for just this set of drawings, but it's going to be the same for the first sheet and the second sheet and the third sheet for this set of drawings. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to delete it. Click on this and then hit the delete button. I can also select multiple items using the control key. So I'm holding down the control key, and I'm selecting each one of these items here. So when you roll over something that's orange, that means you're about to select it. That's fine. I'm going to delete that one. So selecting all those with the control button, hit delete, and there they go. Oh, missed this one. Okay, then, just like any other line, I can take this and I can trim it to this point. So let's go back up to sketch. See, these are all just sketch lines in here. And I can go trim entities, and that gets trimmed. That gets trimmed right nicely to there. Then I'm going to move this and this. I'm having a hard time selecting these, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and drag a window and put them all in that window. Then move them all over here. and it looks like these guys did not get moved over. And I'm going to use the arrow on the keyboard here. You can't see it. Maybe you can hear it. I just moved that all over and it came out pretty well. Click on that one more time and I'm going to take that line and drag it right there. And now it's hooked up to that line, just like we would do in a sketching situation. All right. So this is how you can modify and work with the background format. So to get back to working with your drawing, you can click here, or you can right click and go to Edit Sheet. Now you'll notice that the title saw rivet and the drawing saw rivet both came in, and that's because there's something going on in the background. There are multiple types of data that come in with this model, and one of them is the title, but many other things can come in as well, depending on how you set up your model. Let's go back to changing that format. You can give that model, materials and finish, and those may come in as well. But notice as I roll over this, it's not actually saw rivet. There's data in the background, metadata, that's called PRP sheet, description, and file name. So I've got a file name and there's description somehow in the background that are called saw rivet. You can program a lot of different things to be certain materials or numbers or vendors or any number of items, and that will pass through to other documents in the SolidWorks system. So it'll show it, say, in a bill of materials, or it'll show it in a drawing, or in an assembly, or many other types of reports that can be generated. So this is another big, powerful part of the 3D parametric CAD universe that has really helped improve productivity. We're back here, and now I've got a little more space for this particular view, and I'm going to make another view that's going to help us out here. I can't really see what's going on inside here very well, and I could make this, if I wanted to, a view with hidden lines. See? And now I've got these details in here in a hidden fashion, but that's not good. You want to define things to clearly identified solid lines. But if I can't do that here because all I have are hidden lines, I can't do it here because I don't have the right view. How do I do it? Well, I'm going to go back and change this again. So I can change this from having hidden lines to not having hidden lines. There we go, hidden lines removed. It's always better to take up a little more space to clearly identify everything you need. Remember, when you're doing the drawing, obviously you know what's going on. It's not always obvious to other people. Think of how difficult it is to tell someone else what's going on in your own head and how people often don't understand. Well, this isn't even you being there. You have to tell somebody what's going on in your head only on a sheet of paper. So we're going to go to View Layout, and we're going to do a section view. Okay. And it's going to be based on this view, and we're going to show where the section goes, and it's going to go right down the middle. And you could put it here, here. This is probably a good spot for it because that's where the origin is. Again, it's important to place the origin properly. So now we have created the section. So that's like cutting this view right down where those dotted lines are. And then what does it look like when you slice it right in half? Well, this is what it looks like when you slice it right in half. So the hatch marks here are where it's flat, as if you had cut it. And notice down here, this is the hole. Now it has solid lines because we cut it open and you can see it very clearly. That's the whole purpose of the section. Now, if we wanted to call this something other than section AA, which is kind of standard, you just start with A and you go to B. But if we wanted to do something different, we can change that here. There's all sorts of things that we can change in our section view over here, and we'll work on a couple of them. Again, this section view is going to go along with the parent view. That's what we based it off of. So that's really good because the top, everything can be aligned from one side to the other. You could have created a whole new drawing view that was separate from this parent view and put it over here, but then it would get confusing because it wouldn't be clear that this lined up with something else. So basing it off of the parent view makes a whole lot of sense, and it's absolutely required. So one more thing to notice is that this is a small sheet of paper. This is 8.5 by 11. Now this is a small part of the small sheet of paper. So we're going to put in another view. We're going to put in a detail view right here. And in order to put in a detail view, what they ask you to do is to sketch a circle. That circle will encompass the parts that you want to make larger so that you can show something in greater detail. So we put the center point here, and for this view I don't want it to get too crazy big, so I just want to make sure we just capture what we need. So I'm going to put the outer part of the circle there, and now it copies this thing and makes it bigger. Notice how it's about twice as big. We'll look at that in a little bit. And then I put this view up here somewhere. I'm going to make one more view down here later. That's why I'm leaving some space. Okay, so we have detail B here. So we got section A, detail B, and it would continue to change like that. Okay, so this is how you make a section view and a detail view. Now, I don't necessarily like how they put this circle in here. So you can change a lot of those things again over here. This is a circle, but you can change it to something with a leader. And I'm going to move this section AA over here so you can see what's going on with this a little better. There we go. So it's B with a leader. I'm going to go click back on this view so that I can change the things associated with it. And no leader. So I just have the B hanging out over here. Or connected. Ooh, okay, that looks kind of cool, but too many lines going in between. So we're going to go back to with leader. That works out. Okay, so I click off of here so that I'm not selecting any other views. But if you do want to change something about a view, you just click right here after it turns orange. And now this one will turn purple because it is a child view. And the scale default is to use the parent scale. Well, notice how the scale here is 4:1, and the scale for the parent is down here, 2:1. So this is twice as big as this one here. Now, these views, if you move them around, the details will come with them. See how that the notations will come with them. So the detail B went with it. That's fine. Even though I can move the notations around themselves, they will follow their orientation with the view. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is let you know that something's very much missing here on these three views. And that is that there are no center lines. So before we start dimensioning things, we should put in some center lines. So in order to do that, we go to annotation. Now we can start putting dimensions in, but I'll hold off on that for a second. Please, you should too. because I want to save you some work. We're going to put in center lines, so annotation center line. There are two ways of doing center lines. You can either take two edges, here and here, and put a center line between them, or a single cylindrical face. Could be a toroidal, it could be a conical face. But I find the best is with cylindrical faces, and we're going to do that this time. So now you might try to be clicking on this, and it's not going to work. This is not a cylindrical face. This is a flat face because it is a section, it got cut. But right here, this is a cylindrical face. So if I just click on this, a center line shows up. And I should do the same thing over here. And a center line shows up. And I should do the same thing here. Even though we have this section line here, it should also have a center line going down. This one already has it on here, so we don't have to worry about the center cross here. All right, so we're done with making center lines. Okay, next we're going to put in dimensions. Now, you could just go and do all those dimensions just like we did when we made the model using this smart dimension thing, but I don't even want to show you that because I want to show you the smart way of doing things. Now, this being a fairly simple part, it's kind of helpful and easy to show you, because when you do this next step, sometimes with a more complicated part, it gets a little messy. But that's why they give you all the options. We're going to go to Model Items, and we are going to get the source from the entire model, and we are going to choose all of the dimensions. Now you can choose to use whole wizard profiles or simply whole callouts. We're going to go with that and eliminate the duplicates. We don't have any of these kinds of dimensions or annotations, so I'm not too worried about it. And we're going to not select any reference geometry. So what it's going to do is going to insert dimensions, annotations, and reference geometry, if we so desire, that we got from the model. Remember, this is the drawing, the other thing was the model. And as soon as we hit the green check mark, it's going to look like a mess, but it's going to be a good mess. Okay, so here is our good mess. And we're going to have to clean up our mess, but you will see that all of these came in this nice black font. And oh man, I made a big mistake. Notice how I've got a 9.53 here and a 6.35 here. Hey, wasn't this supposed to be a 1/4 inch, and wasn't this supposed... Oh man, what did I do? What did I do? You know what I did? I didn't go down here and bring this in as inch, pounds, seconds. Okay, now that's all I did, and I changed these back to what we had originally put in here. Okay, so let's go back out like this and see what's going on over here. Oh goodness. Just click and drag it back in. Click and drag it back in. Now we have some problems here. And if you'll notice, you see this 1.00 with this jagged line. What's this all about? These came in on this view for some unknown reason. Now we're going to put the 1 and the 1.25 over here on the section view. And the way I'm going to do that, see, I could just try to drag it over here, but it doesn't work out because it's associated with this view here. So I'm going to hold the shift key. So if you want to shift a dimension from one view to the next view, then you hold the shift key and then you drag it. So I'm holding the shift key down, can drag this over and release the button. Now the 1 is associated with this view. Going to do the same thing with 1.25, drag it over to this view. what we want to do again is emphasize communication. Not just emphasize it, but go over and above what is maybe normally expected. So you want to make sure that every little detail is as clear as can possibly be. You just never know who's going to read your drawings, and they may look at things the same way you do, or maybe they don't. So, for example, here, notice how this witness line right here looks like it could be part of the physical object. Okay, so it could be a little bit confusing. Does this object continue on the back and it's not cut off here or something like that? But instead, you want to make every single witness line point to, but not touch, what it's measuring. So this witness line comes just barely off that point. Same thing with this one. So we're going to take each and every witness line that we see and make sure that it is coming off just a little bit. See what I did there? I took the dimension, I clicked on it, and these two control points show up. So I moved it to where it's just barely pointing at what it's measuring. Now this 45 looks like it's just fine, but this 03 is kind of cramped in all these different lines and arrows and things. So we want to make sure that it is as clear as possible. We want to avoid as best we can lines crossing lines. So see how this 25 is crossing this 03 line? Let's move this 25 out here, and now there's no crossing of lines, so our communication is better. The 45, this one's crossing a line. So let's see if we can move this out like this, and maybe move the 03 in, move the 25 in, because we want to avoid getting too close to this view. Now, another question is, do we really need 2 decimal places here? Do we even need 1? This is just an easy chamfer. This part is just going to get smashed anyway. Same thing with this 30. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the precision on this, go over here, and make it only 30 degrees. Same thing here with the 45. Go here, make it 45 degrees. Now this 25 diameter is out in the middle of nowhere here. Let's bring it in, bring it close. And continuing to look at those witness lines to see if they're off, they're fine. Notice how this line here, this center line that we made, is going straight through detail B. Now this center line actually keeps going all the way up here because this is a detail view of this part. So this line is actually this line. So we want to move the line. We grab that control point, bring it down here, and now it's not interfering with that detail B. Okay, let's go over to this view. I had already moved the R38. Notice how it keeps snapping to different spots. That can be helpful sometimes. You can change those in the options if you want to. I don't mind it too much right now. But let's look at this. Now this does come off of where it's pointing to, but it could come off a little bit further. And this 1.00, that overlaps the solid line. So we want to bring that witness line out a little ways. And it's already over here, but the 1.25 goes all the way deep in here. So we're going to bring that out a little ways. The 38 diameter goes all the way up to the top. Well, not all the way up to the top, but almost to the top. I'm going to bring that down. Going to bring that down. Okay, now our witness lines are all pointing at, but not overlapping the solid lines. And this section circle here is expected to cross lines, but notice how the B is right in line with that arrow. That's confusing. No confusion. Try to avoid all the confusing things. And it's good to have that B kind of closer to the detail, be on the side of where that detail shows up. You don't want it over here. People might be looking over this way. So to absolutely clarify where things are going, put it on that side of this view. Okay, so that's the hard part sometimes. Oh, also notice that I put the 125 and the 1.00 at different heights. If I put this like this, it could get confusing that this is 1.251.00. Someone could easily make the mistake that this is supposed to be 1.251. Nope, that's a very different thing than 1.25. All right, I think I don't need that much space for the 30 here, and then I can take this view, again, roll over, it's orange, and then I can click on it and drag it. And now things are a lot further spaced out. I'm going to move this over a little ways and give this section view, which is really important, a little more space. Ha, much better. Okay, now that we've got that set up, we have most of what we wanted to do done. I wanted to put in one more dimension here. Now, it's not specified in our drawing, but it would be a very easy dimension to measure, say if you were just checking to see if the part was any good. It would give you at least an indication, even though it may not be all that important. It would tell you that it might be a good part or not. See this R38? That's really what we wanted, but that's actually kind of hard to measure because the center of that's down here, and this isn't a full diameter across here. So I'm going to put in a dimension that shows what that's supposed to be. We're going to call it, though, a reference dimension, and we're going to put it in parentheses. If you put something in parentheses, then it's not a dimension that you absolutely have to have, but it might be nice to identify to see if it can help out. Whereas if you had just given the drawing like this to whoever's making the rivet, they might have to do a bunch of calculations to figure out what that's supposed to be. Why not make it easy for them? Okay, so there you go with the reference dimension. Now, sometimes it might be necessary to change the direction of arrows. So for this 45, it just naturally went in between here. But this 25, and it's not letting me change just by double clicking. So I'm going to just click on the dimension, then go up here to leaders and force it to go inside. There we go. So I made it go back inside and then brought it back up to where it was. So I'm just going to move that around. Okay, so sometimes you got to play with a little bit and realize that you're on one mode than another. But this is definitely an improved version of where we were. Okay, we're going to do one more thing and we're going to create a new view. We're actually going to define our own view. So if I wanted to make so I'm going to go to view layout, going to model view. Now they give you some options of different views. So you can use, for example, isometric, dimetric, trimetric. Let's see what these look like for a preview. Okay, notice how I'm not seeing the end that has this little hole in it and so on, because that's really what I want to see. Can I say, no, that's not it. Dang, I don't have any of that. So I'm going to have to create my own view. So let's go back to the model, and you can easily get back to a model without having to mess around with the screens or whatever, and just right click on the part and go to open part. All right, so let's just see what we have here. I would like to show the model, say like this. That's about right. Okay. And I'm going to go up here to model views, view orientation, and this little star asterisk thing with new view. So click here. Up here should come this view name. So I'm going to call it oblique 1. Hit OK. And then go back to our drawing. So we can click on window there, go to our drawing. I'm going to escape out of where we were and then go back to model view and double click on saw rivet, and notice how oblique 1 shows up. So I just bring that over here, click that, and here comes that view. Well, I wanted it in more of a shaded way. Then this helps out whoever is making the part. They can get a good idea of what this is supposed to generally look like from an angle, and that it's got these different aspects at the very end. I can make it shaded without the lines. Of course, that doesn't help out very much. So the lines give it perspective. Can change it back here, but I'm going to stick with this. And now this came in at a certain size. Might want this a little different size. Right now that's 2:1. Maybe a little bit smaller will help. 3:2. Okay. Sounds good. And this is a very good complete drawing that if you wanted to make it using standard machining techniques, you could use this drawing for just that. Or it's very good for checking to make sure that the part you made, however it was made, is exactly what you were looking for. In this video, we started out with the part that we made a while ago and showed how to put in views, how to change and get into the format, how to use the format, then how to make a section view, and then from any view, but in this case the section view, we made a detailed view, and how to change up some of the parameters for sections and details. From there we brought in dimensions from model items instead of trying to redimension everything. But the nice thing about having model items and having fully defined sketches and so on is that you know that all of these dimensions will suffice for actually making the part. So from there we cleaned it up. We made sure that the dimensions were in the view that they were supposed to be in, made sure that the witness lines were off just a little bit so that they knew where they were pointing at, that we had as few crossing of lines as possible, that we didn't have dimensions overlapping on top of one another to avoid any of that kind of confusion. Finally, we defined our own view and then put a new view in that helps to show the part as a whole on this 2D style of drawing. Well, I hope this helped and that you can use this to make your own drawing and apply it to any other drawings that you use in the future.